Has anyone stayed at 237 Stillwater Road? I clean Airbnbs for a living. I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and recently started my own cleaning company. I used to work for a larger management company, but had some difficulties with my boss and the way that the business was run. Fuck you, Blake. So I quit, and I started managing a couple of my own. It doesn't pay too much, but I get to work on my own time, and I'm my own boss. A large majority of the Airbnbs that I clean are mom and pop owned, and since they don't have the time to clean it, they pay me in between guests. This story is called I Am Terrified of the Airbnb I Clean For, by Grocery Unusual. The properties are, most of the time, left relatively clean, but every once in a while we get shitty clients that'll just trash the place for a party or who knows what else. The worst I've had to do is scrub dried puke or throw away the occasional used condom, but it's worth it for the perks that come along with the job. I do most of my business through Craigslist, advertising my cleaning services to anyone in the area who may need help with their place. About a month ago, someone replied to my listing with nothing but the address of their property, the amount I could expect to be paid, and the first date it required cleaning. 237 Stillwater Road. $125. June 24th, 12 p.m. Although this may seem strange to someone new or unfamiliar with the business, it's fairly common for the messages from the hosts to be this simple. It was part of the reason I enjoyed the job. I've never been a people person, so I enjoyed the simplicity of the little interaction I did with people within the business. I responded saying I could take the job, and didn't give it a second thought. The rental looked run down from the outside, in desperate need of a paint job to replace the peeling white paint on the exterior of the house. Nestled on the top of a steep hill overlooking a large lake, which coincidentally harbored a few of the other houses I maintained. It was one story, with an unfinished basement indicated by the concrete foundation and the windows peeking just over the grass. However, the inside was a different story. Walking through the house, I found 2 fully furnished bedrooms, a kitchen, and an attached garage that had been converted into a game room, and a couple of doors I assumed led to closets. The rental was surprisingly immaculate. It was as if it had not been touched in weeks. This was a surprise, as the listing said the previous occupant had left no less than 2 hours ago. Walking through the house, not a single pillow or sheet in the bedrooms looked to be disturbed. No dishes sat in the sink waiting to be scrubbed, no crumbs or dirt dotted the carpet or stained wood floors. It's not uncommon for occupants to clean up the rental in order to avoid a large cleaning fee, but I'd never seen a rental this sterile. However, I pride myself on being thorough, and I decided to replace the sheets as well as vacuum the floors just to be safe. Upon getting to the kitchen, I noticed a door in the corner I did not previously note being there. Stuck to the door was another detail I must have passed over in the initial walkthrough. A sticky note displayed a simple request written in neat handwriting. Replace salt in water softener. Through the door was a dark stairway leading to the basement. A lot of these old rentals had me do this as part of their routine. It was a menial task, but was inconvenient enough for me to often forget about, as they were usually out of the way, in basements or a garage or other places that I rarely had any reason to go to. Forgetting was usually not a big deal though, as these salt-dependent water softeners can often go weeks without being replenished. Since it was the first time I had cleaned this rental, and the owner had explicitly asked for it, I decided to not take the chance that it could wait. About halfway down the stairs, I realized that the light from the open kitchen door was failing. I turned around to realize the door was shutting. I raced up to the top of the steps. My initial panic was met with the realization that the door was simply on old hinges and naturally closed on its own. I shivered as I understood that this meant I would not only have to walk down in the dark, but also walk up the stairs in the dark. While I'd never been afraid of the dark or basements or things of that nature, there was something about being in an unfamiliar house, one which countless people have stayed at, and whose owner I had only briefly communicated with. This made me more uncomfortable than I can ever recall being. However, it was something that I needed to get done. Making it down to the hanging chain attached to the bulb was no big deal. A hurried walk down the stairs could easily make it to the chain before the door fully closed. I bet that even a relaxed walk could allow me to pull it in time, but that was not something I had the nerve to test. The area of the rental is the typical Midwestern unfinished basement. Concrete floors and exposed wood beams. It reminded me of my childhood home. The first thing you'll likely notice is the pungent mildew smell, which is considerably stronger than an average basement. A single light illuminates the entire space, but it has to be pulled by a chain attached to the bulb, which requires one to walk into the basement with no light outside of the light from the kitchen door at the top of the stairs. A negligible amount of light is filtered through the grimy windows, mostly covered in cardboard, likely in a vain attempt to keep the heat in during the harsh winters. There was old junk lining most of the walls in the basement. It was on shelves or in boxes. The water softener was located near one of the four corners, in between the water heater and the washer and dryer. The salt in the water softener was completely empty. Usually, it takes about a month for a full 4-person family to go through the salt if it's fully filled. Either the salt hadn't been replaced in about a month if it was fully filled to begin with, or this rental somehow uses an almost impossible amount of water. Puzzled, but eager to get out of the basement, I poured one of the salt bags stacked against the side of the water softener into the maw of the machine. I contemplated leaving the basement light on and calling it a day, but it was my first time cleaning this rental, and I wanted to leave it as if I had not been there. Additionally, there was the possibility that the occupants would not find the light and turn it off, and the thought of having to replace a burnt-out bulb in complete darkness made my skin crawl. So I took a deep breath. I tugged the chain down, plunging myself into complete darkness. Now, I still have the scar from running up the stairs. I told myself I wouldn't sprint, but as soon as I pulled it off, a fear I haven't felt since childhood swept over me. My mind conjured forms in the darkness behind me, scraping the air inches away from my pant leg as I ran up the stairs, their shape changing every new step. About 2/3 of the way up the stairs, my foot caught on one of the steps, and my knee connected with the stairs. A sharp pain radiated out from my kneecap. I scrambled to get myself up, wincing at the sharp pain, and I scrambled up the remaining steps. I half expected the door to be locked when I made it to the small landing at the crest of the stairs, and I let out a relieved sigh when I felt the door give. The shapes in my mind evaporated at the presence of the dying summer light pouring through the kitchen windows. I felt my face blush with embarrassment for the last 10 seconds, but another part of me insisted that my fear was justified. Trying to shake the feeling off, I did my final walkthrough of the house. By now, the adrenaline had worn off and my leg throbbed with the memory of my tumble. After I was sure everything was up to my standards, I locked the front door and limped out to my car and drove off. I've been cleaning this rental for just over a month now, and every time it's the same. The house is immaculate when I arrive, and there's a new note on the door to the basement, written in the same handwriting, but written on a different sticky note or with slight variations in the print. The water softener is always empty, and I always have to dump salt into the fill line. For each bag of salt I go through, a new bag replaces the one that I have just used up for the next time I show up. I have now given up on cleaning the rest of the rental, and I now only go to replace the salt. A single thing is different, though. I am more terrified of the basement each time I go. The shapes are closer. Sometimes I think I feel them brush my shirt or my pant leg when I run up the stairs in the dark. And maybe I do. I've started to bring a flashlight on my daily trip into the basement, but this does little to reduce the thoughts in the back of my mind. I bring it regardless, as it's better than nothing, but the notion of something else being in the room with me has started to follow me throughout the house. At first, I felt it only when I was in the basement, and then I felt it in the kitchen. Now, I feel it in the entire house. I've cleaned it every day since the first day, and every night, the owner will contact me with the address of the rental, the amount I can expect to be paid, tomorrow's date, and the time they expect me to clean it. I have never seen anyone staying there, nor any evidence of inhabitants within the house, but the house is always clean. I've never dusted, but no dust accumulates on the untouched furniture or shelves. I'm sure the odds are astronomically low, or if anyone will even see this, but I feel like I need to try. If so, please reply or DM me. Has anyone stayed at 237 Stillwater Road?